Today on Locked On Canadiens, we try to build the future of this Habs defense. Plus, with three beatable teams on the docket, why does this week feel so precarious?
You are Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi there, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Canadiens. I want to thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. As you know, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube as part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. My name is Laura Saba, also known as the Active Stick, and I'm joined as always by my wonderful co-host, Ian Boisvert, also known as Maybe It's Ian. Ian, how are you doing? We've got a big week coming up. It's like a small week and a big week at the same time, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, we always talk about 4 out of 6. This is one of the last, I think, opportunities for 4 out of 6 in the month of December. We're going to be talking, I guess, 6 out of 8 in every week after this. It's kind of crazy. So the Canadiens will get to catch their breath a little this week, which is crazy to say in a week where they're about to start a back-to-back. So It's just the condensed season schedule. Get used to it. It's not going anywhere.
Absolutely. And we are going to do a weekly forecast in this first segment. And then a little bit later, we're going to be talking about the future of this Habs defense because they've got, essentially their top 4D locked up right now. So what happens to the rest of the roster? And then finally, this podcast likes to come out in defense of much maligned defensemen. And right now we're feeling that this is Alex Carrier. So we do want to talk about that. But first, let's turn our attention to the Montreal Canadiens this week.
Yeah, so let's get started. Montreal, an all-Canadian week for Montreal, twice at home against Ottawa and Winnipeg to start, and then finishing the week in Toronto Saturday night, Hockey Night in Canada. It should be a fun game, regardless of the fact that both teams. Montreal's kind of gotten back on track a little bit, but the Leafs are still struggling. But let's start.
They're also playing the Blues though on Sunday night.
Oh, that's right. They do have They have the Blues on Sunday night. I completely forgot about that game. So I guess we are still going to be talking about 6 out of 8 in this one. The schedule has already gotten me off to the wrong start.
You know how I know this is that I looked and there's a game every Sunday in December. So when you said it finishes off with Toronto, I was like, wait a minute. There's a game every Sunday in December.
Yes.
But they do like it. So it is kind of. It's a back-to-back and then a back-to-back. So there is a little bit of breathing room, but there are some other weeks in the schedule where it's like really when will they find the time to have the morning off, right? So let's talk about this week because this week feels winnable. Every single team that they are seeing this week is a beatable team. Unfortunately, I've been a Montreal Canadiens fan for more than half of my life. And I know that when it looks like this, it's a terrifying time to be a Montreal Canadiens fan.
It can be. I think the real challenge, so far has just been the cadence of the games has been weird. NHL, all athletes are creatures of habit. They like their patterns. The pattern has been odd. At least if you can look at the month of December, the one thing you can say for sure is that there are patterns. You're playing basically Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday every week for the entire month. After this week, of course, they play Tuesday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday. But
plus, there's the Christmas holiday, and it's a little bit off. But it does kind of get back to a little bit normal.
Yeah, but let's start on Tuesday versus the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa comes in 12-9-4 with 28 points. They are 4th in the Atlantic. Montreal comes in 13-8-3, 29 points for 3rd in the Atlantic. So this is a big game between these two teams. They are neck and neck. The winner of this game is going to leapfrog the other one and move up into the next rung of the standings. Montreal defeated Ottawa in their only other matchup so far this season. Their first game in November was also against Ottawa. Now their first game in December will be against Ottawa. It was a 4-3 overtime win. Montreal led 2-0 after the first, trailed 3-2 in the third. Demidov tied the game late, and Newhook won it in overtime. Montembeault, a very quiet night 14 saves on 17 shots for an .824 save percentage was good enough for the win in that one. Since then, the Senators are 6-4-2 for 14 points in 12 games, and Montreal is 4-5-3, 11 points in 12 games. Both goalies for the Sens are struggling. Ullmark a 9-6-4 this season, but an .874 and a .310. Meriläinen 3-3-0, an .874 as well, and a .340. So neither of those are good for the Ottawa Senators. What are you looking for in this game, and why is it Florian Xhekaj completely punking somebody in an Ottawa uniform?
I think that's what's going to happen because that's just how these two teams work, right? It's not just about the bad blood at this point. I feel like when they see each other, they just lose it. Something goes wrong. And I think that they kind of forget how to play for a large part of the game, right? Case in point, like why did they play McDermott last game, right? Why did they do that? And so for me, I think the Montreal Canadiens are fully in the driver's seat of this one. If they allow the Ottawa Senators to get into their head, they're going to unravel. If they allow any opportunities for the Sens to get at Sam Montembeault, his confidence is extremely fragile right now. It's really up to them, you know. And I do think that Florian Xhekaj is going to have to at least have words with someone at some point, just because that's how these two teams are. I like the Xhekaj brothers' odds over the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, I do too. I think that the Senators have tried to keep rotating a cast of these kinds of players in and out, and it hasn't worked. I think they know full well what Arbor Xhekaj is capable of, and I'm sure the ones who spent any time in Belleville against Florian Xhekaj and Laval, they know as well. One of the stats I wanted to key in on for the Sens, and then we'll move on to the next matchup here. Senators are 13th in the league in power play opportunities. That doesn't sound all that wild. However, when you take into account they were first in power play opportunities last year, 24-25, and in 23-24, and in 22-23, for them to drop as far as they have now, it is kind of a weird concept that they're finally not getting the calls. Since 22-23, the Sens have had 936 power play opportunities. The next closest team in Florida had 870. That's 66 more than anybody else in the league. That's the gap from 1 to 2 is the same as the gap from 2 to 14. So I'm starting to think that Ottawa's goodwill with the referees has dried up to a certain extent. And we always joked that they were power play merchants for a while. Well, they're not getting that anymore, and their team is middling, right? They're not taking that step that we all kind of thought they were, because this is one aspect of their game. They're spending less time on the power play. So just wanted to throw that out there for the Sens. All right. Let's keep things moving. Winnipeg the following night on Wednesday. It's a 7:30 start time. I believe that's because it is Andrei Markov night at the Bell Center. They will be honoring him for the first time since his retirement. We'll talk about Andrei Markov after that game. I think there's a lot to be said there about him as a Canadian, how it ended, how unfair it all was. I want to talk about that. But the Jets come in 13-10-0 for 26 points, sixth in the Central. Only St. Louis and Nashville are worse. The Habs lost both in regulation versus Winnipeg last year. 4-2 loss in Winnipeg and a 4-1 loss in Montreal. Connor Hellebuck was in net for both of those, and that won't be the case this time. He's dealing with, he just had a procedure, I believe, on his knee, so he's out for a little while. He will not be in net. It will be one of Eric Comrie, who is an 898 and a 291, or Thomas Milic, who lost his only start to this point in the National Hockey League. So not great company there in net. Mark Scheifele, the coward, 31 points in 24 games. Kyle Connor, 29 in 24. Josh Morrissey, 23 in 24. Power play is 10th in the league. Penalty kill is 6th. Your thoughts on the Jets? Without Connor Hellebuck, are they still concerning to you? Like, are you still worried about playing that team?
Yes, absolutely. Because they're not bums, right? Yes, Connor Hellebuck has been the backbone of their success of late, but they're not absolute bums. There's a lot of good players, and Mark Scheifele always manages to do something. So, the key for the Montreal Canadiens is to contain him, most of all, but also the same formula that we wanted from them last week. Get in front of the goalie, go to the net, make the goalie's life hard. These goalies are, understudies / rookies. That's really going to be the key for me, is get in the goalie's face, generate some offense, really, really be difficult. And I think the Canadiens can pull it off. All right. We're not going to spend too much time in Toronto because I think, things are still the same way they were the last time we talked about them. The Toronto Maple Leafs are struggling. The Montreal Canadiens need to beat them. I think that's pretty much it's going to be in Toronto, so it's going to be a little bit different than last time. It's possible that we see Samuel Montembeault in that game because we're seeing Dobish against Winnipeg. But then there's St. Louis, and I do feel like Dobish is the kind of guy they play against St. Louis. So who do you play in that game?
I'm aligned with that. I would put Montembeault in Saturday night in Toronto. The fact that Dobish got the last one, and yes, he won that game. He didn't look all that great. He's made the saves he needed to, but he definitely looked shaky. That he looked gettable in that game. For the Blues season, I don't know what they're trying to do. They're 9-10-7. Robert Thomas is their leading point scorer with 16 points in 22 games. That's bad. Like they're having a really bad time. I think they need to start selling. I don't know if they will. The goaltending is obviously a big question mark with Jordan Binnington either winning Four Nations Gold or being an unplayable NHL goaltender or being traded to the Edmonton Oilers, as has been mused about the last few days. I don't like you pointed out at the beginning. These are all gettable games for Montreal, and I think that's why you used the word you did in precarious. And I know Scott messaged us the same thought before we got started. I think this is a game that this is a week that the Canadiens should be able to look back on, and 4 out of 8 would not be enough. You want 6, you want 7, you possibly want all 8 of these points. Like this should be a week that they look back on as a big success.
Yes. And that's what we want. And I think that's why it's so precarious, because it's possible they come away with 3 out of 8 or 4 out of 8. And that's not good enough for the team to do what we think it can do this season, right? While they're waiting for people to come back from injury. All right, up next, the Canadiens have their top 4 locked up right now. There's guys in the pipeline. There's Reinbacher, there's Engström, and then there's guys that are literally bodies on this team. What do they do with the remainder of their defense? We're going to get into that in just one moment here on Locked On Canadiens. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads and money lines that adjust instantly. There's player props that update as guys heat up. And you can bet next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. And if you're looking a little bit closer to home, the over for the Habs Sens is set at 6.5 with the over coming in at plus 116 odds. On the Sundays, if you want to get right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your live NFL bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so could you. This episode is also brought to you by Doer. Do you ever think to yourself, I wish I had work clothes that felt like athleisure? Because Doer has that for you. They've got really great looking classic pieces that look amazing, but they're so comfortable. Their jeans have 5 times the stretch of traditional denim, but they look good for work. They look good for travel. They look good for running errands. And they feel really stretchy, but they don't look stretchy. They look very put together. Doer combines classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. It's really the best of both worlds. Simply put, Doer makes the world's most comfortable pants without having to sacrifice style. Trust me, once you try these, they're going to be your go-to as well. Get a pair for yourself or as an amazing holiday gift for someone you love. Go now to doer.ca/lockedoncanadians. You'll get 15% off your first order. That's DUER.ca/lockedoncanadians for 15% off. Doer.ca/lockedoncanadians. All right. So let's talk about the defense, because the Montreal Canadiens on Friday re-signed Mike Matheson. I'm still very annoyed with them for waiting until Friday, not giving this to me on Thursday. But now they've got their current top 4D locked up, which leaves a lot of decisions to be made, and there's a couple of guys knocking on the door.
Yeah, and it's I know a lot of fans want there to be spaces for young players to come along and have a spot ready for them when they are ready. I don't necessarily know that defense is one of those spots, because you're never going to know that a player is going to be ready until they are, right? And then in which case you are meaningfully keeping your team in a state where they are not as good as they possibly could be, because you're hoping one day this defenseman can come along and make the team and bring the team to what you think they can be. You know, you looking across the team here, they have 4 defensemen locked up until at least 2031. Caden Goalie and Mike Matheson both are UFAs in 2031. Noah Dobson in 2033. Lane Hudson in 2034. They also have a decision point coming with Arber Xhekaj, who is a restricted free agent at the end of the season with arbitration rights the following season for Jaden Struble, Adam Engström in a couple seasons as well. And then you've got that guy, David Reinbacher, down in Laval, who I think fans keep saying, well, we need to have a spot open for him. But the Canadiens don't seem in any kind of rush to get him up there now, even though now there is, I mean, now you could argue there's time and space for him. They called up Adam Engström. Why not? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if they wanted to do that, they would have done that. So I just think that this Mike Matheson extension kind of puts home that the Canadiens have decided in their top 4 for the next 5 years, which is those guys. That's not to say that David Reinbacher can't pierce that and make his way in there. That's not to say that Adam Engström can't pierce that and make his way in there. They can. The burden of proof now, though, is much greater, because if you're talking about taking one of those guys out of the top 4, it means that you're talking about potentially moving on from them because they are paid handsomely. There's no, like, if you're not playing a Caden Goalie in the top 4 so that you can put a David Reinbacher up there, that means something has happened in Caden Goolie's game where you no longer think he's capable of being that guy.
Yeah.
And that's, to this point, we have no idea. I know a lot of people are like, well, they need to make a trade now. They need to trade somebody away to make space. They don't.
No.
Because Reinbacher's not ready. I would argue Adam Engström's not ready yet. And that's okay. It's okay that they're not ready. I'm curious to see what comes next for this team. I want to talk about another defender in Alex Carrier in our third segment, because I think that maybe they need to actually add some more NHL ready talent now to insulate him. But where are you at with the current state of the defense and like keeping a spot open, so to speak, for a David Reinbacher or an Adam Engström moving forward?
You know what's really funny is that I tend to be the kind of person who believes that defensemen are often artificially held back longer, right? I think that sometimes there's a misconception about how long their development curve is. I don't think the Montreal Canadiens are doing that, and you can see that with how quickly they allowed Caden Goalie to become one of the, the central focal figures of their defense when he first made the team. I don't think that you can say that if you look at the way Lane Hudson's playing. I don't think that there's an argument to be made that the Montreal Canadiens are in the habit of artificially holding back a defenseman. That said, I don't think that they should be in the business of artificially promoting a defenseman either before his time. And I think that, sometimes a particular defenseman might take a longer time to cook simply because of the situation that he's going to be dropped in once he's fully ready, right? Yeah. And I personally think that there will be plenty of time for David Reinbacher and Adam Engström, because at the same time, I don't think that they're making the team right away, but I don't think that the Canadiens have to trade a defenseman, because what could happen is that there could be a center that becomes available and a defenseman goes the other way, and they have no choice but to play one of those guys, right? We've seen what the Canadiens have done when they had an abundance of players. They traded away Kovacevic. Or did they allow him to walk? I can't remember. I think they traded
Kovacevic to the Jets. We got him for free on waivers. And he was so good. For a guy on waivers, man, that guy was so good. And then Jordan Harris, right? Like, they traded him away as well. They didn't trade Jordan Harris to make room for Jaden Struble or whatever. They traded Jordan Harris because that's the piece that made the most sense at the time in that conversation with the Columbus Blue Jackets, right? So I don't think they need to open up a spot for anybody, because I think naturally by attrition, there's going to be a spot open for David Reinbacher and or Adam Engström and or both. Yeah. The people here that I think should be sweating the most are Jaden Struble and Arber Xhekaj, especially with Arber Xhekaj's contract not being solidified. Like, we're talking about them extending Mike Matheson. Xhaka's not getting any kind of extension talk right now. Like, I mean, they have the benefit of time with him because he's a restricted free agent and they don't need to be doing that. But if he was a piece that they thought we absolutely need to have this guy moving forward, they would have locked him down by now. I don't think that the Canadiens are falling out of their shoes to go trade him, but I do think that there are question marks about whether or not he's a long-term piece with this franchise.
Yeah.
He can barely. He got scratched so Engström could play when they could have scratched Struble. I thought that made sense, but even still, like his chair is far from solidified. To
Absolutely.
use the Martyism there, he does not have his chair nailed down yet.
Yeah. Do you foresee a situation where one of the top four moves into a third pairing role because of how good the overall defense is and somebody like takes their spot?
I think they're hoping that's naturally what happens with Mike Matheson. I think they're hoping that naturally he moves into that third pairing, sort of veteran presence, modified minutes and a now you've got in the top four, you have a lefty and a righty on both sides with Reinbacher finally taking that place. But that's over the course of his 5-year deal, right? Like that's not happening tomorrow. That's probably not happening by the end of the season or the end of next season.
There's so much time.
Yeah, there's nothing but time. I think last year going to the playoffs was great. I think it gave a lot of people the wrong impression about where we still are with this rebuild or build, is that like it's not over. We're still waiting for those pieces to get there. Like if you think that the rebuild is complete now, then why is Demidov on like a 60-point pace? Shouldn't he be on like 115-point pace?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
That's really what like we know that this is, and no one's saying Demidov the bum. No one's saying that because they shouldn't be. This is the logical progression of how this team has built this franchise. It's going to take a few years before they are at the height of their power.
Yeah, absolutely. I am in full agreement with you. Now, there's one guy we mentioned and we want to spend a little bit more time talking about, and that is Alex Carrier, because I feel like he's been unfairly maligned and also put in unfair situations. So let's get into that in just a moment here on Locked On Canadiens. When I'm hydrated, everything just works better. My focus, energy, mood, even my skin. And that's why I've been using Drip Drop. It's doctor-developed hydration that keeps me running at full power no matter what my day looks like. Drip Drop isn't your average sports drink. It delivers 3 times the electrolytes and half the sugar of leading brands, using a science-backed formula trusted by medical professionals, firefighters, and over 90% of top college and pro teams. I like using Drip Drop as part of my daily routine. I'll mix a packet in the morning before the gym or during that midday slump. It actually tastes amazing. My go-to flavor is grape, and it's been my secret weapon for staying sharp and energized throughout long days. Hydration has become a non-negotiable for me. Drip Drop helps me feel sharper, calmer, and honestly just better overall. Right now, Drip Drop is offering podcast listeners 20% off your first order. Go to dripdrop.com and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL. That's dripdrop.com, promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Stock up now before the heat hits hard and keep your body and mind performing at their best with Drip Drop. All right, so I do want to talk about Alex Carey. I brought this up earlier today, and I feel like Alex Carey lately has not been appreciated for what he brings. Unfortunately, he has been put in a situation where he's playing a little bit too many things. I don't know if it's too many minutes. I think it's more he's having to do too many things, and it's not reflective of what he can optimally bring to this team. And I just always think back to Alex Carrier in the playoffs. This is a guy who knows how to play in those situations. So I feel like right now he's not looking that great. And I did want to talk about it because I think he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I think so too. So I think it's a combination of the minutes increasing and the role that he plays. Of course, I looked at some numbers, Laura. I can be forgiven for indulging in the numbers on any given day. Caden Goalie was injured in Game 5 this year and was lost since then. He played 4.5 games essentially before he got bounced. Carrier's average time on ice in games 1 through 4, 16 minutes 53 seconds. His average time on ice in games 6 through 24, those are all of the games without Goalie in them, 20 minutes and 36 seconds. So almost 4 full minutes more, which is about 4 more shifts a game for a defenseman. It's not an incredible increase, but it is an increase nonetheless. Penalty killing time on ice with Goalie per game, 2 minutes, 28 seconds. Without Goalie, 3 minutes and 40 seconds. So essentially an extra penalty kill shift every game. Now, all of that's like, well, okay, it's definitely more. He's got more time. He's playing more. We know this. But how, like, is that much playing difference? Is that big of a difference to which it's impacting the way that he plays? And that's why I think this next part is important. He leads the Canadiens in blocks and hits taken, and he's actually 4th in the National Hockey League in hits taken. This guy's body is beat up, man. And, you know, I look back at last year, and I think of David Savard. And I think of how he was in the perfect role that David Savard can be in. He was a third pairing defenseman who would go out there and penalty kill, and he'd be out there late in the game to try to seal a victory defensively. And he was seldom used outside of that. And I think they're trying to play Alex Carrier both in that role and as, okay, you can pitch in and cover some of Goalie's shifts too. You know, and I think that worked for a time. And I think we're at a breaking point now where it's not working. And I think a lot of people are going, Carrier is a bum. He's bad. He's a bad hockey player. And I just have a hard time like grappling with that mentality of, you guys love this player. Something happened. Now you don't like him. And you don't look at the something happened as the catalyst for why he's playing poorly. Yeah. It's just the guy's a bum. He needs to play less. Yeah, I think he's a great defenseman. I think he was picked up to be a 6th defenseman in the National Hockey League for this team, and he's not able to play that role. It's sort of like, you know, it's sort of like why I didn't understand the Joe Veleno. I still don't understand a lot of the Joe Veleno hate, because like he was the Canadiens' 13th forward in camp, and you're going to be shocked to find out why he was the 13th forward in camp. It's because he's not very good. Playing above his head because he has to. These guys are, it's, you know, all of us have had shifts at work where, you know, somebody's out, somebody's sick, somebody's on vacation, and you have to pinch hit for a couple weeks. And it's tough, and you do the best you can, and you don't get everything done that you want to. But at the end of the day, nobody goes, you bum, you didn't do what you needed to. Everyone understands that you're pitching in and doing something that maybe you wouldn't otherwise need to do.
In fact, on the contrary, people appreciate you more for doing that.
Yeah.
And I fear what happened here.
Yeah. Like, okay. I look at the 4-on-4 goal that McKinnon scored in the Colorado game. Alex Carrier is on the ice, and everyone immediately goes after Alex Carrier for that. In a perfect world, is there ever a situation where Alex Carrier is on the ice in a 4-on-4 against Nathan McKinnon? No, because he's not in the top 4 defensemen. You shouldn't need to use him in 4-on-4 at all. It'd be like putting David Savard out there in 4-on-4. You would never do that. And I'm not saying they're the same guy. I think Carrier's got better foot speed, better offensive mindset, but the role, the chair that he occupies is the same as David Savard's, and they're asking him to do more, and he's doing the best he can. And yeah, some nights it's not going to work, which is why I know a lot of people are pointing at the forwards and saying we need to add another center, which is true. I think we need another veteran defenseman that Marty can trust, because he does not trust Engström. He does not trust Struble. He does not trust Xhekaj. So that's it. He's got 4 dudes that he trusts, and he's running the wheels off of them. And like, because he doesn't have any other option. I think it's a message loud and clear to Kent Hughes. I need another dude back here.
Yeah. Yeah. Somebody that I will play. Which I think, you know, and I think that that's the thing, is that if you put Alex Carrier back into that right situation, everybody's going to love him again. I don't think that he's a bum. I don't think that, like, you know, I don't think that he can't play defense. Like, that is literally his job. He plays defense. And that kind of blew my mind, that when you said that he is the 4th in the league in hits taken.
He takes a beating, man.
That's incredible. Why are people going after him so much?
Well, because he is the kind of defender who invites that contact and tries to roll out of it. Yeah. Right? Like, you watch him defend the forecheck when he's got the puck on the boards. He tries to just eat that contact, bounce off of it, make a play. Like, that's constantly what's going through his mind, I think. So, like, are all of those hits bone crunching? No, but it's like a death by 1,000 paper cuts. And some of them aren't paper cuts. Some of them are sledgehammers. You know, like, it's it's a challenge. And I think a lot of people they look at he's on the ice when goal goes in, bad hockey player. And I refuse to believe that hockey analysis continues to live in that space where we're looking at plus minus and going good player, bad player, or looking at a JFresh card and going red, bad hockey player, bad. I refuse to believe that.
Yes, absolutely. All right. It is time for our trivia.
It is. Let's do we have a Sens themed question from yesterday and another one for today. Who scored the first Habs goal against version 2.0 of the Ottawa Senators? So the Senators that joined the league back in the early 90s, not the one that left the league after, winning the Stanley Cup a few times in the early 1900s. So who scored that goal, Laura?
Is it Mike Keane?
It is Mike Keane on October 8th, 1992. Montreal lost that game against Ottawa, so you can take that one, Ottawa. That's fine. Super Rain and Ted Clare had that one, right? Today's question, also about the Ottawa Senators, but more so along the lines of what we expect from this rivalry. Now that we have the first Habs goal against the 2.0 Sens out of the way, who was the first Habs Sens fight when the Sens made it back in the early 90s? So who were the two combatants to the Sens and Habs in that fight? If you have the answer, put it in the comments down below this video. Send it to us any way you know how, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode of the show.
Man, I hate the Sens. All right. That's it for us today. If you would like to find us on social media, you can find us on TikTok, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Locked On Canadiens. We would love to hear from you via email, lockedoncanadiens@gmail.com. Send us your thoughts, your feelings, your Habs musings, and most importantly, your mailbag questions. You can also leave mailbag questions in the YouTube comments. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on YouTube. We're part of the #1 sports podcast network, and you guys are the reason why. Please tell your friends. Give us the ratings and reviews that will help people discover us. We really, really appreciate you all. We will be obviously covering the Montreal Canadiens throughout this entire season and playoffs if applicable. So we want you along for the ride. You can find my co-host all over social media at Maybe It's Ian. You'll find me at The Active Stick. Thank you so much for listening, and we will be back tomorrow with that Sens recap.